So, what would you like to see at the federal level to make all this easier for you and everyone else in the hemp industry?
Hmm. Every time I mess around with government, just nothing gets done. So if I could say that what would help get things done on a macro level in federal government is term limits, because you've got somebody who's older than my parents trying to regulate something that is the future building material. That's a problem,
Yeah.
whether it's the president or the Senate or Congress or anything like that, because you shouldn't have somebody um, who's not able to see where things are going to be 20 years from now. The leader is supposed to be someone who says, this is
They
where
see the
it's supposed to
potential in
go.
it. Yeah.
Exactly. Um, as far as on the macro level with hemp specifically, I would say, oh, and that is not a shot at any of our current political leaders.
Yeah.
I'm an independent. Um, on a micro level specific for hemp, making it so you don't have all of these programs that make it more difficult to grow hemp, that make it more difficult to process hemp, that make it more difficult to transport hemp, that make it more difficult to bank hemp. Because the minute in Kentucky that you have to pay a $75 fee to get a hemp growing license, it already makes it more expensive than the competitors. And then you have to do tests on your crop before you're allowed to harvest it to make sure it doesn't have THC levels. Then all of a sudden you have to pay for a permit to grow it. You've got to pay for testing to test it. And the risk that it went hot and then they destroy your crop is there and you could lose it all. And so figuring out a better way to handle that where it doesn't automatically say, oh, you're going to grow hemp, that's going to be at least $1,000 and a 1 in 3 chance that we're going to take your crop from you, would make it so people weren't as skittish about doing it.
That's a lot to ask of the government. I hope
Yeah.
it gets there soon. It's just, yeah. I
Yeah. And
like it's been suppressed for so long, and now they've finally opened the gates, but they're still trying to shut it. That's what it seems like.
here's the problem is when you deregulate something too quickly, then you have things that come into the market or come into play where, for example, like CBD, not a bad thing. CBD does help certain people, but you can then take CBD, find a loophole where you can change that into something else like a Delta 8, and then people are quasi getting high off of CBD because there was a loophole on what CBD was and it's not THC, but you can take instead of 9, you can take 8, which is the next closest cannabinoid to it, manipulate it a little bit, and it kind of sort of does something from what I understand. So I get why they're doing it. It's to prevent those type of things, but at the same time, it's a plan. So it's a pretty hard position those guys got.